In this video, I will show you how to calculate subtotal by invoice number in Excel like this. So let's get started. Here in this Excel sheet, I have some invoice details including the invoice number and amount in these columns. Now I want to calculate the subtotals by invoice numbers. For example, I want to display the subtotal for the first invoice in this cell. Similarly, the subtotal for the second invoice should be displayed in this cell. There are two parts to the problem. First, we need to determine the first occurrence of the invoice numbers so that we can display the subtotal in that row. Second, we need to calculate the subtotal for all the rows containing that particular invoice number. To figure out the first occurrence of the invoice number, I will use the COUNTIF function. The COUNTIF function returns the count of the cells that meet the specified criteria. This function accepts two arguments, a range and a criteria. To find the first occurrence of the invoice number, I will count the same invoice number in the range starting from the first cell to the current cell. If the count is 1, it is the first time the invoice number is appearing in the column, otherwise not. To convert that into a formula, I will select the first invoice number cell as the starting and ending point as the range argument. I will select the same cell as the criteria argument as well. To make the range starting point fixed, I will make the range start reference absolute using the $sign like this. Now let's drag the formula to other cells. When we drag the formula to the second cell, Excel increases the range endpoint and invoice number references by 1, while the range starting point is kept as the first cell since it is defined as the absolute reference. So it returns the count of invoice number 101 in the range B3 to B4, which is 2. Similarly, cell number 3 returns the count of invoice number 102 in the range B3 to B5, which is 1. As you can see, the count of 1 indicates that the particular invoice number is appearing for the first time, and that is where we need to display the amount subtotal of that particular invoice number. The next step is to calculate the subtotal for the invoice number. To do that, I will use the SUMIF function. The SUMIF function returns the sum of the values in a range that meets the specified condition. This function accepts three arguments, a range, a condition, and an optional sum range. We want to calculate and display the subtotal only if it is the first occurrence of the invoice. So I will use the Excel if function to check that. Let's type an equal sign in the target cell to start the formula. Now type if followed by an opening bracket. I will use the COUNTIF formula to get the current invoice count that we used earlier and compare that with the number 1, which will act as a condition argument of the if function. Type a comma to enter the value which will be returned if the condition is true. In this case, that value will be the subtotal for the current invoice number. So let's type SUMIF followed by an opening bracket. Select the invoice cell range as the first criteria range argument, the first invoice number as the second criteria argument, and the amount range as the third sum range argument of the SUMIF function. Type the closing bracket of the SUMIF function. Type a comma and then type the empty double quotes as the false value argument followed by the closing bracket of the if function. I will also make the invoice range and amount range references absolute using the signs like this so that they will not change if we drag the formula to other cells. Overall, this formula means that if this invoice is appearing for the first time in the range, calculate the subtotal of this invoice number and return it, and if it is not appearing for the first time, return an empty string. Hit the enter key to complete the formula. Copy the formula to other cells by dragging the cell down from the bottom right corner of the cell. As you can see, we now have subtotals by invoice numbers for all the invoices where they appear for the first time. Watch these videos for more Excel tips, tricks and how-to tutorials. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to our channel.